Girls with their nails done now.
This episode of HTM Tech is brought to you by Rogue Energy. Rogue Energy offers a wide range of products including energy drinks and dietary supplements containing zero sugar, 0 to 5 calories, B vitamins, gluten-free, soy-free, and 100% vegan. Rogue Energy products are a great alternative to those corner store energy drinks that are loaded with sugar and cause you to crash soon after. Head over to rogueenergy.com where viewers of HTM Tech can get 10% off any order placed. Not just your first order, but any time you order. Just use offer code HTM Tech at the checkout to get your discount on one of the hottest energy drink brands on the market. Hey, don't take our word for it. Try it for yourself today.
Hey guys, Joe the Tech Guy here with another episode this week, but I am not alone. As always, whenever we have Apple products to really kind of delve into, I like to bring in the doctor, Mr. Michael Jargo, on. This is going to be an interesting one this week, my friend, because coming up on February 2nd, at least in the United States, we are finally going to see the Apple Vision Pro out in the wild, so to speak. So I thought we would sit down and have a little discussion and talk about some of the pros and the cons, the features, tech specs, whatever we would kind of want to get into here. Before I kind of get to the 500-pound gorilla in the room here, initial just kind of thoughts, because I know we kind of touched on this briefly the last time you and I sat down, but kind of just like initial thoughts about like, what is this thing and like what's its purpose for existing.
Well, it's funny that you say, we'll see it out in the wild, because I have a feeling it's going to be a long while before people like you or I see this thing out in the wild. I don't think that's going to happen anytime very soon. Have you seen any kind of orders coming in for the Apple Vision Pro locally as of yet? Because I haven't.
Like, so for it's going to be the type of thing where you're not just going to be able to go and pick it up at a store. It's not going to be that kind of product because an interesting thing, before I get into the details, do you know what your face size is?
Huge.
See, that's going to be a thing here. So this very much like going to buy a fancy suit. You need to be fitted. You need to be measured for this product before you even purchase it. So is this going to be an Apple Store exclusive then? Correct. Yeah, we're not going to see this at lowly kind of retails. Now, again, that could change with time. Initial launch, I believe, it's going to be very much kind of like a feeling out process, I suspect. Your Best Buys and that kind of stuff. I would think like stores like Walmart and whatnot. Probably not, given the clientele that Walmart typically sees, but very much I think it's going to be an Apple Store exclusive for the time being. Like I say, just given the initial setup and the scan, because they literally have to scan your face to make sure that light seal that they call it is going to fit properly to your face.
The more I learn about this thing, man, the more I really feel like this is not intended for us. Like, this is not going to be for mass human consumption. Like, you ask about like the uses for it. Like, I can think of all kinds of amazing uses for it, of all kinds of things that I would love to use it for. What's it actually going to be used for? I feel like is the military industrial complex flying drones and dropping bombs on people, which, I mean, in a 2024 context seems legit, but I feel like that's who this thing is being geared towards. I don't feel like this is even intended for consumer electronics. I feel like this is just the military industrial complex and rich people flying their drones around. That's the only practical use that I see at initial launch.
It's interesting when you watch their official promotional material for it, like the YouTube video by Apple, again, in traditional Apple form, very high production values, really good showing off what the product is and whatnot. What's interesting to me is that they really seem to be pushing productivity as like a big thing that you can do with this. As you and I are very productive people, that's what we use our computers for, doing work, creating content and that kind of stuff. It's a type of thing where I look at that and I go, especially given the battery life that this thing has, 2 hours on an external power supply that you have to put in your pocket off to your side or whatnot. But I mean, mind you, you can plug it in, but then then you're constrained by that because it's not a wireless device. It's the type of thing, and apparently for those who select few out there, like Marquez Brownlee and all that have actually worn these things, they're quite heavy. So typically, we're sitting for multiple hours doing this kind of stuff. I have just a hard time seeing myself wearing this thing for multiple hours, having like Microsoft Teams open, having Safari open, having, a video or something, or having some music kind of playing. It's just like, it's, for me, that could just be like a sensory overload. Because the other thing with this too, because this isn't your traditional VR headset, a la MetaQuest or PlayStation VR. This is what Apple is referring to as mixed reality, which is a mixture of virtual reality overlaid your actual environment or augmented reality. And, there still is very much that issue that just a lot of people get motion sickness when it comes to the VR thing, the cognitive dissonance, which is the actual term. A conflict in your brain just makes you, for lack of a better term, sick. So there's still that hurdle to get over as well. That makes it a product not for everybody. But just the idea of wearing this heavy headset on my head for multiple hours to be productive, that's a tough sell for me.
It's a very tough sell, especially when we're so used to our laptops, our desktops, and our phones, right? I think the other thing that's really going to hold it back is it's ugly. I mean, if you actually look at somebody wearing this thing, they look goofy as hell, right? And especially in the States, that actually means something, right? Like if these were just like eyeglasses, right? And I say eyeglasses is in the letter I, and then glasses that were projecting, the virtual overlay.
Yep.
Yeah, I could see it being a lot more appealing. But given the way that this thing, the immersion as well as the appearance, and the outrageous price tag, I kind of feel like this is going to be the Apple metaverse. Like I don't think this is going to take off the way even Apple is expecting it to. Do you?
First of all, like you'd mentioned the size. Now, for those of you watching the video, saw the thumbnail. Now, the overlay of the glasses over your head may seem like very much an exaggeration, and yes, to a certain extent, but
not really.
Really, when you really kind of look at it, so it's interesting. But yeah, no, I agree. Like it's gonna be the type of thing. Like for those who want it, they're already bought in. They probably have the money already set aside, or they have money to burn. Like it's gonna be the type of thing where at most, like we're talking iPads and iPhones and Macs, we're talking millions of units typically when these kind of things launch. I see this thing doing 500,000 tops in sales if they're lucky, because
as far as consumer goes.
Yeah.
Once you enter into the private sector, whether it be for military operation, whether it be for medical, I mean, like there are a lot of great practical uses, but strictly from the consumer electronics perspective, yeah, I think 500,000 might even be being generous.
It's, in my opinion, it's a product that's like 10 years too soon.
Yeah,
we're gonna get there, but for me, like the technology needs to evolve for this to happen. But there's way more elegant ways of doing something similar to this that's not strapped to your head. But we'll kind of get a little bit to that as well. But let's touch on like I said, the 500-pound gorilla in the room, the price of this thing. So America, we'll start with U.S. dollars. So before sales tax, or I'm Canadian, so I'm ignorant of this fact here. So $34.99 in U.S. dollars plus whatever tax you would normally pay on top for your goods is what you're going to pay in the United States. Now, when this does come out later on this year, because only slated for U.S. release coming on February 2nd, later this year we'll see it in Canada. Brace yourself for this one, Canadians. $4,700 plus, if you're in Ontario or some other provinces in Canada, 13% sales tax on top of that. So we're talking well over $5,000 just for the base model. Now, we haven't even touched on the fact that there's probably going to be some higher end specs. There's going to be probably at least 2 SKUs of this, one base malt and one with some higher storage, likely. That like we can throw everything else out. That price, like we mentioned, the consumer, that takes it off the table for 95% of consumers out there. That's the type. It blew me away when we first saw this, because we touched it briefly on another video. I think that they went for the high end too quickly. I was hoping that they were going to like work their way to it, but they went right for the deep waters right off the hop.
But on the other hand, like, it's Apple, and that's a very Apple thing to do, right? There is still that mystique around Apple. I mean, I see it even like when people are buying, MacBook Airs, when they're buying iPads, or, oh, this is my first Apple, and I'm really kind of afraid of it. It's like the iOS at this point and Windows 11 are, yes, they're very different machines, but the ease of use going back and forth between the two for the typical person has gotten so much closer, so much easier. We've seen the price of all of the Apple electronics come way down, especially since they started putting the M.dot processors inside of them, right? Now we're kind of going back to, oh no, we're still elitist Apple. If you want to own this Apple device, and that's kind of where we find ourselves. But like you were saying, I remember when we had the 65-inch Mitsubishi TVs that were like, $5,000 if you wanted one. And now you can go get a 65-inch TV for $200 at your local Best Buy. Once this technology comes down, and it's way more accessible to the mass public, then we might actually have a lot more to talk about. As it is now, I feel like unless you get a tax write-off for your business, Dr. Morin, then that I feel like that is where this is going to be targeted. That's who this is going to be marketed to. And those are going to be the people that are buying it, people that can find a way to use this inside of a professional capacity, like, John Hopkins University, as they're doing, heart research, and they want to go in and you can see a full virtual overlay inside of your head while you're working on an anatomical heart inside of somebody's chest that's still beating. Like, that's where I see the practical application for these things right now, not for Tom, Dick, or Harry who want to sit at home and play Fortnite in, Unreal Resolution.
Yeah, we're entering what Apple is referring to as spatial computing. That's how they're kind of describing this experience. So you're basically in whatever space that you're in, whether it be your home, your office, what have you, and then the interface essentially takes up the space that you're in. Like, it'll even cast like a shadow on the ground and all that kind of stuff. So it's very much, it's definitely where the future is going to. So it's going to be interesting because, like, as well, like, these first generation of products, there tend to kind of be some little hiccups and some glitches and some bugs, right? So that for me, not only that initial cost, which is still just ridiculous to me, it's that those first generation of products typically, like I said, they're it's not that they're bad. You know what I'm getting at? Just that there's always some hiccups with the first of anything.
And I'm sure, almost 30 years ago now, there were people that were saying that about iPods too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the space that we're existing in right now. It's just now we have the technology to sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, having how we're recording right now. I mean, I'm in Canada, and you're down in the States. We're hundreds miles or more apart from each other, and it's
cold everywhere.
It's cold everywhere, unfortunately.
Where's my eye heater? Let's warm this thing up. Come on.
Don't give them any ideas, because they may do it, or somebody else may do it. Just on a brief tangent, I don't know if you've heard of this thing, but in that same kind of vein for ridiculous products, Microsoft recently released an Xbox toaster.
I mean, that does not surprise me. If only it would take a bath with Bill Gates.
Right. And what it does is when you toast it, it actually toasts the Xbox logo onto your toast. That's what you're paying for, I guess. I
mean, but we say that, and I have a Mickey Mouse pancake maker downstairs. You pour the batter in, and it comes out as Mickey Mouse's head. I mean, it's just good marketing by the team at Microsoft, because everybody needs some Xbox toast.
And having said that as well, because I mean, there's going to be obviously a lot of first-party support for this device with Apple. I mean, all of their productivity apps are going to make sure it's going to run this thing. But we mentioned Microsoft. What do we see for third parties like Microsoft, like Google? Are they going to be willing to? Because that's the type of thing with the somewhat limited market for this product. Are developers going to want to develop for this platform? That's I think it's a worthwhile question to ask.
Is it the Sega Dreamcast? You remember the Dreamcast? The Dreamcast,
Love the Dreamcast.
When it came out,
Awesome.
it was a far superior machine. I mean, like the Gamecast would even go up against most of nothing current gen, but like the last gen systems. I think I would take the Dreamcast in a lot of different scenarios. There were a lot of features on the Dreamcast that I still wish I could get on my Xbox One or my PS5, right? Like the LED screen inside of the controller so I can call my own plays on Madden and not have to worry about my friend Todd stealing all of my my ideas from the screen itself, right? The great machine. The problem was when they launched the Dreamcast, all the developers had already signed on with Microsoft and Sony. Nobody was making games for the Dreamcast, and so the Dreamcast went the age of the dinosaur, even though it was the far superior gaming system. I feel like, yeah, we are in a real risk here inside of this Apple Vision world or metaverse, whatever you want to call it, that you have to have developers. Otherwise, what's the point?
And there's the thing as well, because with it's we're adding on to an existing platform. Like I said, we have the MetaQuest, we have PlayStation VR. There's some other lesser known companies that are in that market as well. And for nothing else as well, I mean, we're going to see more entertainment on social media and YouTube, because I mean, just search up VR fails on YouTube, and you'll just see that's another legitimate concern with this type of thing is if you're by yourself and say you're playing like a boxing game, are you going to end up punching the wall, your television, your spouse, your friends, like your dog? What's going to happen here? I mean, entertaining for it not happening to you, but I mean, damn. Like it's the type of thing where there's a bit of an element of danger. And I mean, as well, I mean, if you're fully immersed and you don't have that transparency mode kind of on to where you can kind of see out of it, like somebody could just come along and flick you in the nuts and you would never see it coming. Wow,
you just made this so much worse. Like I didn't even think about somebody flicking me in the nuts. I should always think about somebody flicking me in the nuts, right? It's interesting because as you were sitting there talking, I was like, wow, what is Apple Care going to cost for the Apple Vision Pro, right?
Yep.
And then I was like, oh, wait, I don't just need it on the Apple Vision Pro. I need like Apple Care on everything surrounding the Apple Vision Pro because I'm going to be taking stuff out.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
So I also think that's why, with the promotional material, they've really seemed to have focused on the productivity, home theater, sitting down on a couch and playing a game with a controller, which I mean,
yes. Get it for your home theater. And of course, if you have yourself and your wife and you've got 3 kids, you need to buy 5 Apple Vision Pros.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that is a big thing with this. As much as that they're promoting it, and don't get me wrong, it is wicked technology. Like if you want to get into like the
it's
specs
amazing.
And stuff, it's ridiculous. But at the same time, Jargo, in a world where we're becoming, as much as social media and that kind of stuff, gets us together with everybody else, it can be very isolating as well. And that's one thing with this product, just the nature of it, the fact that you're strapping it just on your head, it's a very isolating experience because with movies, like you just said, you can't share that experience with anybody else. That's just on you. So are you going to be on the family couch, you watching a movie and the rest of your family? Sorry.
The rest of your family is sitting there laughing at you because you look ridiculous.
Right. They look like that's the other thing too, that don't get me wrong. I mean, they don't look bad, but I mean, like I mentioned, look at the thumbnail in the video. They look like big, goofy ski goggles. About the best way I can kind of word it. When I originally heard that this product was going to be a thing. Like I said, I thought that they would have gone with something a little bit less. I was expecting something more like glasses,
like the Oculus,
or something more kind of like more like a sunglass. Like I was expecting more like the augmented kind of reality kind of stuff. But I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, too, though, this is just first generation. So that's something to keep in mind with this as well, is that this is that first step. I think that they took too big of a first step, but it is still very much a first step.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm looking for what they should have made this thing look like.
Right. Having said that, because at the beginning you hinted as well as some kind of negative potentially things, with especially in the Middle East, in Russia, Ukraine, all these conflicts kind of going on. Does this kind of technology, I mean, when it comes to warfare, it's a bit of a scary thought.
Well, I mean, this is every drone pilot's dream, right? I mean, for as far as flying around stuff to blow people up, this is an absolutely ideal sort of situation.
What's crazy about this too is like the interface that works with this is pretty wild. Okay, so we come from the older school of we're used to keyboard and clicking with the mouse to kind of interact with our computers and whatnot. Now recently with iPads and phones and tablets and that kind of stuff, touch interface, touching a vertical or a screen laying down flat. With this type of thing, we're talking just with your eyes and a gesture with your hand. So there's like cameras and everything, sensors underneath that are watching to see what your hands are doing. And then there's sensors watching your eyeballs. So you just literally have to, so just picture your iOS kind of interface up floating in the air, and you just look at the icon that you want to select, and you just look at it and tap your fingers together. And that's how you're kind of interacting. Pretty wild when you think about it. And then, like you mentioned, when it comes to possible military applications and whatnot, I guess it would just be a matter of, hey, so we're flying over, I look at that building there, we're just going to blow up that building. I'm going to pinch my fingers and we're going to blow up that building. It's like, I don't know if you guys had Kids in the Hall in the United States.
Oh,
it was a Canadian comedy show. Remember the guy used to go, like, I'm going to squish your head by kind of with your fingers. We're essentially going to be doing that, but we're going to be literally killing people and blowing up buildings by pinching.
See, that's what it should have looked like, Joe. It should have looked like Lewis Hamilton's helmet from Osaka. That's what it should have looked like.
That looks impressive.
Just make it a full helmet.
That would have been like $20,000. But yeah, the interface is like it's something that's really interesting, because from watching a lot of stuff, kind of doing research for the episode here, people have said that the interface is really, really intuitive, which I'm surprised. Like I said, given that's a first generation, I said like the eye tracking, it's almost like it's almost like you have telepathy. That's how they've kind of described it.
It's Tony Stark.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, that's what when you see Tony Stark designing the Iron Man suit in Iron Man 1, and he's moving his hands around and he's increasing this and shrinking that and spin it, and that basically every gesture that you can possibly make, that's how you're going to function inside of the Apple Vision Pro. And it's going to be awesome, except you're going to look like an absolute idiot until you know what you're doing.
Now, yeah, see, like I said, that's the thing that going forward, like, what can they do to eliminate that as part of it? Like, I don't know if it's something you just project from the floor, from your TV stand, or what it is, because I think that would be something pretty cool. But as long as you're wearing something on you like that, it looks unusual.
Well, and I mean, there's been, for a lot of applications, like especially inside of the medical field, to me is going to be the biggest market for these things, is when you have doctors that are performing surgery and, oh my God, this isn't necessarily right. Absolutely. The training aspect.
Yeah.
But there's already a certain clientele that's using like the Google glasses. You remember the Google glasses that just show you the overlay in real time at whatever you're looking at? take that and multiply it by like 1 billion. And I feel like that's the capabilities of the Apple Vision Pro. They just have to figure out how to do it. And I think most applications, you're going to be rather stationary drone pilots, even as I think you could get to autonomous pilots, right? Like you could have a individual pilot that just goes into the office that day and flies the plane autonomously through the Apple Vision inside of what essentially looks like a Formula One driving simulator, right? I think that the possibilities are endless, but we don't know what those possibilities are until we can see it in practical application. And in order to see it in practical application, again, you have to have the developers. There has to be the software in order to make this thing work. And at this point, I keep seeing everything about the hardware. I keep seeing everything about the hardware specs and what you can do with it, like when it's linked up to a MacBook Pro as far as surfing the internet. I don't need a $4,000 VR headset to help me surf the internet. I'll just go buy an M3.
Yeah. And it's the type of thing as well, given that we've become more mobile as people, a lot of our computing devices we can kind of take and use on the go. This is not that. I mean, you got to kind of be in one place, and like I said, for the price, again, 2 hours of battery life, it's not, although I'm sure that somebody is probably going to, I'll wait for the first video of, some idiot walking down the street with an Apple Vision Pro on trying to use it. Apple claims that you're not going to be able to do that, but like I know somebody's going to try. And
of course they will.
Yeah, and I just hope that it gets documented and recorded because I would definitely want to see that.
And then they're going to fall on their face, and then they're going to want to cash in their Apple Care, and then they're going to bring it to Best Buy and expect me to fix it. Don't bring it to Best Buy. Just take it to Apple. Just take it directly to Apple.
Yeah. It's And you mentioned something really interesting too with when it comes to racing. That I think is a really interesting application use for that, especially if like a certain driver hasn't been to a track before. I mean, they just got to sit in a simulator, throw that puppy on, and then they can probably race around that track and kind of learn how to race on the track before they even get there.
Well, and they do. I think all the companies, except maybe Haas, all of the racing teams at this point, except maybe Haas, have full-on simulators, right? Yeah. And they are impressive pieces of machinery. You're talking, $15,000, $20,000 simulators, where even you can feel each pebble underneath of the wheel as you're going around these courses. And it's for that purpose. But yeah, I do think inside of the world of racing, especially when it comes to sports, you're going to see a huge market. I know there was a VR company that had teamed up with several teams inside of the NFL as well. I forget the name of the company now. Actually, I think it might have been developed at Stanford University, if I remember right. But like the Dallas Cowboys, it didn't help them at all yesterday. But, they could put Dak Prescott inside of a VR headset and have him play against the Green Bay defense. Again, obviously didn't help him yesterday. Go Pack, go. But this kind of takes that to the next level. Right, where you could actually take a quarterback, put them inside of a practical application like that, and as far as timing, as far as accuracy, where that route is going to go, there's a lot of possibilities there. Once you can develop this to where it goes in real time, though, like rather than the physics of, okay, you got CD Lamb on the outside, he's running at approximately this speed, he's going to cut at this speed, I need to throw the ball there. How long until you can just throw on, something like the Apple Vision Pro, and it will map all those calculations for you, so you don't even have to think about it. And suddenly, Baker Mayfield becomes the next Tom Brady because he's got, all this amazing technology at his fingertips.
Yeah, there's lots of cool applications like that too. When it comes to developing games, like especially we're talking about sports, of where you could probably, one thing that companies have been relatively good at, when it comes to sports games, of like trying to map out like a stadium with something like this. There's always a potential that you just strap onto this thing onto one of those guys and you just have him kind of walk around and map the whole environment, then you're going to get an exact replica of that. So there's cool applications like that. But with gaming directly, I think it's interesting that they haven't really said too much, because I think it's still very much the type of thing where I think people still, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not sure how you feel about this. I mean, I still prefer to game, with like a controller in my hand, sitting on a couch or on a traditional computer or something like that. The VR gaming thing is something that's, I see it as like something like potentially kind of cool off in the distance there, but it's not something that really appeals to me.
No, I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. With the exception of like the steering wheels and pedals for F1 games, I've never really wanted to use anything other than a controller. But I do absolutely see the application when you're dealing with stuff like that. And I was correct, by the way. It was developed at Stanford, and currently the Patriots, the Buccaneers, Cowboys, Vikings, Cardinals, and Jets are all using that technology to where they could just strap somebody like Aaron Rodgers into a headset and he can sit and literally from the pocket watch how these defenses play out. It's really, really interesting stuff.
And I think like potentially in the future too, once we start to kind of double down this, once the form factor maybe gets a little bit smaller, things get a little bit more compact and the price drops, we're talking some more kind of real world applications like factory workers, warehouse workers. They could be potentially wearing one of these and they can just look over at their whole inventory and they can see, oh, okay, that's something that we need to bring out. That's something we need to bring out. Oh, we don't have any of that. We need to order that. And you can know that just by looking at that. There's some stores that do a version of that where you basically just hold up your phone to the shelf and it'll tell you, this needs to be brought to the floor and that kind of stuff. So we're starting to get into that realm. But I think with that, with the factory work, especially with making cars and that kind of stuff, there's some really cool work applications as well, which is really interesting to me because then it can literally help people be more productive.
And while we talk about, that $4,000 price tag is very, very high, how many jobs can you eliminate by spending this $4,000? And that's what the companies are looking at. And plus, it's a tax write-off. So, I mean, everybody wins.
That's a big, big factor as well, especially, I see it a lot where I work at because with like self-checkouts and whatnot, and then these companies also like to hire a lot of younger people, and a lot of them are just kind of like part-time. They call in all the time, and then the store can still kind of function with less people. So it's like whenever they, like you said, whenever they can see when they can cut out that human element, they'll definitely look into that. Having said that too, with especially, I'm off on a bit of a tangent here, but with the self-checkout thing, like theft, everything has like skyrocketed with self-checkouts. So a lot of companies are actually maybe looking at eliminating some of those. So they're backpedaling on that.
Well, but here's the thing, right? Like we talk about what a pain it is and how much shrink has went up.
Yeah.
But is the amount of shrink from this one checkout more or less than what it would cost me to staff it with 3 people over the course of a year? You know what I mean? So every individual checkout lane, even if you're paying that person, your clerk, $25,000 a year, which is a very, very low amount of money. Yeah. You're looking at $75,000 a year for 3 people working, an 8-hour shift to cover the entire 24/7 day. Yeah. So are you looking at $75,000 worth of shrink coming from that one register? Because that's what it would cost me to actually staff it. Yeah, your shrink might be way up, but they're still finishing in the positive.
So yeah. So yeah, it's the type of thing where it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. For me personally, and like I said, a lot of people, this is something that is going to be out there, but we're just going to see videos and other people getting to interact with it. For the general population, it's something that's still quite a ways off. I think.
Oh yeah.
Like I'd mentioned at the top of the show here, I think a good 10, maybe 5 years before we start to see more of this kind of out there. And I think that even that's being a little optimistic. Just that there's too many ifs and what abouts, and there's just so many unknowns because this is really, spatial computing. This whole concept is very, very new. So there's some cool aspect of it. There's cons. It's literally all over the place. So it's going to be really interesting to watch. And obviously, you know, I'm always pulling for new technology to help improve things. But this is the type of thing where I'm really not sure how it's going to go overall.
Yeah. And, you know, 5 years from now, we may be sitting on a show and joking about, hey, do you remember when Apple tried to?
Yeah.
It very well could be one of those kind of situations as well.
And to put that in perspective too, you know, going back to when we first used computers, those big, chunky, beige, ugly looking friggin' machines, to now I have a computer that's thinner than my index finger. The entire computer, like one of my previous videos, you know, literally showing it on the side for people that haven't actually seen one, right? So very much with that too. It's
it used to be a computer would take up an entire room, and now literally everybody and their brother is walking around with one that's more powerful than that in their pocket.
In their pockets, it's insane. So it definitely is part of the future of computing. Whether it's going to stay in that form factor or that kind of application, time will tell. I'll be curious to see how that kind of goes. And
I still feel like the real practical application, Joe, is for the United States government to drop bombs on people. I mean, I really feel like that is the target audience here.
At that price point, hard to argue with you on that. All right, dude, before we kind of head out here, I think that, I don't know if you've seen this as well. I've been kind of browsing the web before we went on to record. It appears... Now, this is purely speculation and rumor and hearsay at this point, but we might be getting an Apple event at the end of the month. So we might have a chance to kind of sit down again. I suspect new iPads. Or, as I kind of predicted on my previous video, we're going to see some changes to the AirPod lineup, because I've been noticing that inventory has been very, very light in stores, which is usually an indicator there's a refresh on a product line coming. So I'll be very curious to see. So we may have an opportunity to sit down again. The iPad line as well, definitely a little overdue for a refresh. It's actually been longer since the last time they refreshed the product line. So be very curious to see what is new under the hood for those. I mean, they're likely still going to be around a rectangle. I don't see them going triangular or circular shape or anything like that, or anything ridiculous. But I'll be curious to see what they do with the iPad, because, I mean, even as I'm recording on my Mac, I'm still using an iPad beside it as well. So it's very much my everyday kind of computer. So I'll be watching with bated breath to see what they have new coming with that.
What was it? Was it called the Pyramid? You remember that in The Office, where they had the triangular shaped tablet, the Pyramid?
The saber triangle, or I think they call it the pyramid of the triangle, right? Imagine being a salesperson trying to push that on people, right? You're used to using a rectangle, fantastic. But wait, we have a triangle.
You could have the Pyramid.
Oh boy, yeah. Let's hope that something stupid like that doesn't happen. But if it does, we will be here talking about it for sure.
And laughing about it. Absolutely.
All right, man. That but wraps up here for this time. But before we go, what have you been up to, and where can people find you other than here? I think that you're not doing a whole lot for content these days, are you?
No, I'm not doing really much of anything for content these days, because I work entirely too hard for that. However, there may be something new on the horizons. Yeah, that would be really, really cool. But we'll see. Okay. We're not at public announcement stage for that as of yet.
Interesting. Well, if and when that does happen, I will definitely let people know about it here. Maybe even have you on to kind of announce that as well, so to get the word out there, because I'm happy to support my friends who not only watch, but come in here to do content with me, which is always appreciated. So, yeah, dude, I'm actually kind of hoping that this event will happen in late January, so we can sit down again, because this is always fun to do. And always a pleasure to talk to a fellow Apple nerd.
Yes. I'm not a nerd. I'm a geek. I'm part of the squad.
Proud of it. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one. HTM Tech is brought to you by Microplay. Located at 265 King George Road in Brantford, Ontario, Canada, for all of your video game and collectible needs. The girls with their nails done now. Well, I'm not quite sitting far enough here. So one thing
See,
with
you
this,
said you were ready, Joe. You
Right?
said you were ready.
okay, the magic of editing, people will not see this because I have to kind of jury rig my mic. So I need to get like a mic arm so I can properly position this thing. So it's literally propped up on a DVD box set right now. So,
Oh my God.
all right, I'm a professional. I can do this.
Yeah, right.